Nancy Pelosi finally retires from Congress, but are her replacements any better? Also, we have more news about people pushing back on Prop 50. Are they going to try and limit it to just 2026? And is the California GOP going to sue to stop it entirely? And also, there's a big shift in the political polls, and we're going to get to that all and more on this episode of California Underground, starting right now. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning to another episode of the California Underground. Apologize for that. I was hearing an echo, and I was trying to find out where that was, so my intro was a little bit off. But as I was saying, we have Nancy Pelosi's retirement. We're going to talk about all the people who are trying to replace her, including maybe a new dynasty happening in San Francisco. We're also going to talk about people trying to stop Prop 50, limit it to 2026, or maybe stop it entirely. Plus, there is a big shift in the polls. Is a Republican now in the lead for California governor for 2026? We have all those stories tonight. We have a jam-packed episode, but first, make sure you subscribe, like, share, follow. If you haven't already, hit that notification bell, smash all that stuff. That does help the algorithm, helps more people find us, and we've been very fortunate. We want to thank all the new people who have found us recently, and we've been growing really by a lot, and it's great to see so many new people. It's great to see you all here. The chat is amazing. That's why we do it live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. I'm doing it solo tonight, riding solo tonight. Camille is not feeling well. She is out with the flu. So if you're in the chat, you want to wish her well, tell her to get better soon, please do so. I'm sure she's in the chat right now and she can see all of your nice messages. So let's get started with our first topic of the night. Obviously, the most important or biggest news coming out of California in the past week is that Nancy Pelosi, who has been in office for probably 1,000 years, I think she was the representative when Moses was walking the face of the earth. That's how long she's been in Congress. That's what it seems like, at least. She's been in Congress. Well, she's actually been in Congress 2 years less than I've been alive. I did the math. She's finally retiring. There's been a lot of speculation on when she's going to retire. She formally announced it this week. We're going to talk about all of her replacements. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. But let's take a look at her retirement video. I did pare it down so we don't have to watch the entire thing. A lot of it is about stuff that doesn't really matter to us. But there's some things I want to watch about her retirement video. We'll comment on it throughout the video, so let's take a look at that.
For decades, I've cherished the privilege of representing our magnificent city.
Yet we know for decades, like 4 of them, 4 decades basically.
In the United States Congress. It seems prophetic now that the slogan of my very first campaign in 1980
was "Make America Great Again." No, it wasn't that.
Devin was a voice that will be heard. And it was you who made those words come true. It was the faith that you had placed in me and the latitude that you have given me that enabled me to shatter the marble ceiling and be the first woman Speaker of the House, whose voice would certainly be heard. It was an historic moment for our country, and it was momentous for our community, empowering me to bring home billions of dollars for our city and our state.
It empowered me to bring home the pork. That's what Congress people are really good at, is going to Washington and getting your tax dollars funneled back to their district so they can buy people off. She was really good at that. Really good. Billions of dollars to the people she was probably well connected with and people that she knew she could make stock trades on.
With these resources, we have powered enormous progress. For healthcare, from the fight against HIV/AIDS to the Affordable Care Act. For transportation, extending BART, electrifying Caltrain.
BART, by the way, which is now bankrupt, so I guess she didn't get enough money for it. Also, look at that. That is one hell. I did not mean to do it that way, but if you're watching live on video, I did not mean to pause it right at that moment, but that is a perfect picture of Nancy Pelosi. Holy crap. I don't know what's going on here, but please Burn that image in your mind. That's Nancy Pelosi. Probably a couple martinis in at this point.
Creating the 3rd Street light rail and the central subway, and strengthening our iconic Golden Gate Bridge, all creating good-paying jobs. For housing, enabling nonprofits to build affordable, low-income, community-based housing with the low-income housing tax credit. For the environment, from protecting clean air and water, to taking action on climate, to transforming the Presidio from a military post to a national park, a model for the nation. Of course, credit for this work also goes to our brothers and sisters in labor, and it was also made possible by the entrepreneurial spirit of our private and nonprofit sectors. We can be proud of what we have accomplished, but there's always much more work to be done. Of course, San Francisco's impact is not confined to our city limits. The Affordable Care Act, Wall Street reform.
Wall Street reform, like, I get an inside track on what these stocks are going to be. Didn't want to reform whether or not congressmen and congresspeople could do insider trading. Well, this is the act that they're talking about. Look at this group up here. You got Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Clyburn is up here as well. Oh gosh, who's this? Bernie? Is this Bernie Frank? Who is this guy? This is who Trump made fun of with the blue shirt. He's like, came out with the blue shirt, nipples protruding, very disrespectful, disgusting. This cavalcade of people, really trust them with Wall Street reform as they're all making millions off of insider trading.
Human rights abroad, and so many other priorities, all sprang from the vision, values, and voices of San Franciscans. Because of your trust, I was able to represent our city and our country around the world with patriotism and pride. I say to my colleagues in the House all the time, no matter what title they have bestowed upon me, Speaker, Leader, Whip, there has been no greater honor for me than to stand on the House floor and say, I speak for the people of San Francisco. I have truly loved serving as your voice in Congress, and I've always honored the song of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, the anthem of our city. That is why I want.
Okay. I had to look this up because um, I'm just going to put this out there. Nancy Pelosi, people like her and Gavin Newsom always talk about how they are devout Catholics. We're devout Catholics. We're devout. We're so religious. Nancy Pelosi, I'm Italian. I'm devout Catholic. St. Francis of Assisi. Oh, look at that. We all know that, like, most progressive Democrats can't both be a devout Catholic and also be a progressive Democrat because of the fact that they are, well, let's just say it, they are so pro-abortion. So I had to look this up. Pelosi had a perfect 100% rating from NARAL, a pro-choice America group, across her career, meaning she has voted in support of abortion rights, pro-choice position on every key vote they track. Similarly, Planned Parenthood Action Fund rates her 100% on relevant votes over rolling 6-year periods with no recorded instances of voting against their pro-choice stance. So she's never voted against pro-choice stances. So she's always been in favor of abortion. Here's a couple of things she voted against. 2003, voted against a partial birth abortion ban. Voted against the Unborn Victims Violence Act, voted for the Women's Health Protection Act to codify Roe v. Wade protections, which never actually made it. So she's, for someone who says she's super Catholic and, I'm very Catholic, I'm a devout Catholic, I don't know how you coalesce those two things. And maybe you could say, well, she's just representing her district and she's also, she doesn't want to push her religion on somebody. But really, it's kind of weird that you're that pro-choice and pro-abortion. So for her to throw St. Francis of Assisi in there as if she's a real devout Catholic, kind of shameful.
You, my fellow San Franciscans, to be the first to know. I will not be seeking re-election to Congress. With a grateful heart, I look forward to my final year of service as your proud representative. As we go forward, my message to the city I love is this. San Francisco, know your power, We have made history. We have made progress. We have always led the way. And now we must continue to do so by remaining full participants in our democracy and fighting for the American ideals we hold dear. In doing so, we ensure that our city shines on as a beacon of hope, justice, and peace for the country and for generations to come. After all, San Francisco is the greatest city on earth with the most extraordinary people on earth, and a place that I will always believe is heaven on earth. Thank you, San Francisco, for trusting me to be your voice in Congress. May God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy Pelosi, for being in Congress for 40 years. I mean, thank you for actually stepping down and not dying in office. There's too many politicians. I say this all the time. Way too many politicians are dying in office, and we need term limits, and this is out of control. So thank you for at least stepping down honorably and gracefully and not waiting until you're completely riddled with dementia and can't actually vote on anything, but you still somehow become a congresswoman. So at least thank you, Nancy Pelosi, for stepping down. It's just, she, at the end there, she did talk about San Francisco. I am a fan of San Francisco. I do think San Francisco is a great city. It's fallen on some hard times. I hope it's picking itself back up. My grandfather used to live in San Francisco, so there's a special place for me with San Francisco. But regardless, Nancy Pelosi's had a long, storied career. Obviously has made a ton of money, hundreds of millions of dollars on her insider trading, to the point where they now have apps where they just literally follow Nancy Pelosi's trades. And after she announced her retirement, I posted on Instagram, there were so many people who were replying to me, well, how am I going to get my insider trading tips now? Because they were following these apps and they can't get the insider trading tips anymore. She's been a prolific fundraiser. She's been a prolific kind of powerful person in the Democratic Party. Her leaving is going to create a vacuum, which we're going to talk about. There's some people who are trying to get into her position, but we might not be done with Pelosi's yet. So you think you're done with a Pelosi, even though she's been in power for 40 years and she's had her reign for 40 years. Guess what? We're not completely done with Pelosi's. Now, she's not running for her mother's congressional seat, but she's running for a familiar seat. And, well, let's just watch this video.
Hi, I'm Christine Pelosi, attorney, author, advocate,
the chairperson of the California Democratic Party Women's Caucus,
wife, mom, and today a candidate for California State Senate. I'm running to represent you, San Francisco, in Sacramento, fighting for consumer rights, women's rights, gun violence survivors, immigrants, and our most vulnerable communities against the threat we face.
Christine Pelosi is shaking up the sexual harassment debate in Sacramento.
What do we do when our freedoms are under attack? We speak up, we fight back, and we organize power for the people. And that's what I want to do for you.
Christine Pelosi is running for state senate here in California. Now, where is she running for state senate? Well, it just happens that she's running for the seat that Scott Wiener would be vacating if he is elected to Congress. So Christine Pelosi, not running for Congress, is running for the seat that Scott Wiener would be vacating. So it's almost kind of sounds like they already have it in the bag. It kind of sounds like this election's already been decided. Like, why even turn out and vote? Scott Wiener's going to go on to be the member of Congress. Maybe he knew that Nancy Pelosi was going to retire. He said something about he had to announce it before her retirement because of fundraising or something like that, but which is not true because you had till December to actually say that you were running next year for Congress. So that's not really true. So maybe he had the inside track that Nancy Pelosi was going to retire. So he set it up so he could start raising money, be the first out the gate. Maybe he's the handpicked successor to Nancy Pelosi. Maybe he's been a good little lapdog for this whole time. And Nancy Pelosi's like, you can now take over my reign for the next 40 years. God forbid Scott Wiener is in Congress for 40 years. Don't say we didn't warn you. This is why local elections matter, because people who get elected to local offices eventually move on up in the world, and then they end up in Congress making national policies. So before I go on to the reaction to Christine Pelosi, running for state senate. I did want to check in with the chat and say hi, everyone in the chat. Yes, Camille is out tonight. She's not feeling well. Let me know where you're at in California. Give me a shout out where you're watching from California. I'll get to your chat. It's a little bit harder when you're doing this solo, but I did want to show this real quick. Let me pull this up. This is from one of the dark corners of the internet that is probably one of the most leftist corners of the internet, Reddit. Now, if you don't go on Reddit, then you're probably better off for it, because during Prop 50, my whole feed was just entirely full of Reddit. But I do like to go on Reddit because there's some, baseball stuff I like to follow and stuff like that. But this is from the California politics subreddit. Christine Pelosi steps out of mom's shadow to run for state senate. Now, mind you, Reddit is full of far leftists, far left progressives. It is known to be a far left kind of safe space where conservatives and anyone who is right-leaning is not welcome on Reddit, to the point where they're almost shadow banned and banned off of Reddit altogether. If you don't know what happened with the Donald way back in 2015, 2016, that was a whole thing, was that the Donald was so popular they had to get rid of it off of Reddit because it was kind of hurting people in their fifis. It was hurting people in their fifis on Reddit. They didn't like the fact that the Donald was so popular. But this is the reaction. I got this and I said, this is really interesting, that this is the reaction of people on Reddit who, again, are very far left. Can't stand it when the kids inherit the seat, and they do, because name recognition. Inheritance is anti-democratic. Damn it. Right. That's what we've been saying. That's what people on the other side have been saying about this, is that when you don't get to pick people who run for seats, and then basically it's just your name recognition and all that, well, people don't like that. That's not democratic. It's kind of like when Kamala Harris somehow just got nominated. She was the person running for president. Now, again, she has to still go through a primary. I imagine that she's supposed to go through the jungle primary, and she's probably going to have to run against somebody else. I imagine, though, with all the Pelosi connections, that it's going to be very hard to beat Christine Pelosi, because those Pelosis, they run deep in San Francisco. So, their ties and their power runs very deep. No thanks. No. That's going to be a no for me, dog. Stop. No more legacies. She's going for Scott Wiener's seat, who is running for Nancy's House seat. Typical political musical chairs. Sigh. No kings, no heirs, no dynasties. Find something else to do, Christine. Maybe help the next representative. Well, I'll give you credit. At least if you're protesting the whole no kings thing and no royalty and no aristocracy, well, I give you credit for the fact that you're actually sticking to your principles, wherein you say no kings, no heirs, no kind of, you get to inherit the throne just because you're a Pelosi. Again, she's not going for her mother's seat, but I'm sure her mother's seat would be somewhere down the line if she wanted it. Those Pelosi's, again, are very powerful. Christine Pelosi remains firmly in her mother's shadow as she leverages her name for a salary. Oh, for F's sake, no, nope, size, ugh, barfy face emoji. Of course, would kill them to make way for some actual progressives. Parasites. Wow. Calling the daughter of Nancy Pelosi parasites. Again, these are far left people. Very, very far left people on Reddit, and they are not happy about Christine Pelosi running for this state Senate seat. Go do something that actually gives back to society, like being a teacher. F off Christine. Get your insider trading tips from somewhere else. Don't care what her last name is. What's her position on housing? And then somebody says whatever she needs to say to get elected. That's usually politics. Nope, bad move. I hate when people think the name will win it. She's running for state senate, currently Scott Wiener's seat, blah, blah, blah. This world just gets dumber and dumber. No thanks, Nepo baby. Go leech off mommy. She's got plenty for all of y'all. So as you can see, Reddit not entirely happy. So people are not happy about the fact that Christine Pelosi is running not for her mother's seat. Again, she's not running for her mother's seat. It would be complete nepotism and really straight no kings if she ran for her mother's seat immediately after she announced for her retirement. Instead, she's running for Scott Wiener's seat, and we're all presuming that Scott Wiener is going to be out. I guess he terms out, so maybe he terms out, so that's why he's running for Congress right now. If someone in the chat wants to give me an idea, I think he terms out. So in Sacramento, oddly enough, they have term limits in Sacramento. You actually do term out after a while. You can't stay forever in the legislature. So maybe he's looking ahead when he terms out and he's not going to be around anymore. So that's Christine Pelosi running for state senate. So it looks like we're not done with Pelosi's altogether. Also, completely separate announcement. If you've noticed this new graphic on screen that I put up, if you want to join our members only Telegram which went live last week, you can scan this nice little QR code here. It'll take you to the link and you can go sign in and get access to our Telegram. We've been sending news stories and chatting and stuff like that and keeping people updated. All right. So let's get into the people who are trying to replace Nancy Pelosi. We'll start with the first one, not Scott Wiener. We won't start with Scott Wiener. We'll start with another surprise that came out this week, which might cause a little bit of drama in San Francisco. Former San Francisco Mayor London Breed considers run for Pelosi's seat. Quote, I was taken aback and really humbled by the kinds of people who reached out to me and surprised me, Breed said. I asked them a lot of questions about why and why me, and I've had those conversations nonstop since yesterday. Wow, why me? Why is everyone clamoring to get me back into politics? London Breed said, someone who got booted out of her job as mayor. This might be the funniest thing. Ready? This is the craziest thing that I read out of this entire article. Goes on to say, moderate Democrat State Senator Scott Wiener. Moderate. He's considered a moderate. This must be PBS or something. Yeah, this is a wing of PBS, KQED in the Bay Area. Moderate. They're calling Scott Wiener the moderate, and progressive Saikat Chakrabarty, a wealthy former tech owner who served on New York Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign in 2018, have already announced they'll run. San Francisco Supervisor Connie Chan, a progressive Democrat, has also been rumored to have interest in running. So there you go. London Breed thinking about running. She was the former mayor. It's funny. She's way more moderate than Scott Wiener is because towards the end of her time as mayor of San Francisco, she tried to moderate her position, get tougher on criminal justice, get tougher on drugs and homelessness and stuff like that, trying to clean up the city, kind of what Daniel Lurie's trying to do. She was not successful in that because she did not get reelected. And now they're calling Scott Wiener the moderate, which if he's the moderate, boy, howdy. I can't imagine what progressives must be all for, like, bread lines and socialism and all that stuff. So that's Nancy Pelosi London Breed. London Breed running for Nancy Pelosi's. Now, we all know Scott Wiener is running for Congress for Nancy Pelosi's seat. He's been talking about it for several months now. He announced it. He's been wanting it for several years now. Basically, every time Nancy Pelosi came up for re-election, Scott Wiener was probably patiently waiting there going, oh, is this going to be the time? Is this really going to be it? Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Let's watch a couple videos about Scott Wiener, because there's some new videos that came out this week. I think they're kind of interesting of what kind of representative Scott Wiener is going to be if he ends up in Congress.
But she also just, inspires me in terms of what I think it takes to be an effective elected official and what San Franciscans demand, which is to have a moral compass and core values that you uphold, to have a spine of steel and be willing to fight, and to know how to deliver and know how to build the diverse coalitions necessary to deliver on these core values. She had all of these skills. She has these skills, and I'm eternally grateful for everything she's done.
On the flip side of that, though, looking ahead now, if you are elected to represent San Francisco in the U.S. House of Representatives, what will you do differently than Nancy Pelosi?
It's not about what I'll do differently than Nancy Pelosi. We're different people. Some people have said, are you going to, how does it feel to want to step into her shoes? And my response is that her stiletto pumps are unique and no one is going to be able to wear those pumps.
Probably because he's tried on stiletto pumps like that. So he probably knows it's hard to wear, such by, practical, actual experience.
shoes are not nearly as glamorous as hers. But seriously, there will never be another Nancy Pelosi. She is a unique leader in American history, and she stands alone. And for me, I'm going to be Scott Wiener, as I always have been, which means I'm going to fight to.
Which is a terrifying thought. We know what you're like, Scott Wiener. So the thought of you being Scott Wiener in Congress is terrifying.
Make housing more plentiful and more affordable, to expand access to healthcare and to try to reduce healthcare costs and move towards universal healthcare, to expand clean energy, to protect immigrants and LGBTQ.
Let's talk about universal healthcare. You got close to basically making it happen here in California with Medi-Cal, where you legalized Medi-Cal, or you opened up enrollment. Gavin Newsom opened up enrollment to basically allow Medi-Cal for every undocumented citizen and illegal immigrant. And what happened less than a year after Medi-Cal went broke, and now you have to borrow from yourselves to even fund Medi-Cal. It is so broke that now people are floating a one-time 5% billionaires tax so that they can try and scoop up and steal as much money from billionaires as possible to plug in the holes and make sure that Medi-Cal is solvent and keep paying illegal immigrants for Medi-Cal. And so universal healthcare, you tried it in California, it's not working. I don't think it's ever going to pass on the national level. You can certainly try, but let's see what else he has to say.
People and to try to make sure that Donald Trump is no longer president of the United States.
Donald Trump's no longer the president of the United States. He's not going to be president after 3 years. He's got a couple years left. So after that, unless there's something you're not telling us about the fact that maybe if Democrats get power again, you guys are going to try and impeach him, which would not be a surprise if Democrats get power of the House, that they'll try and impeach Donald Trump again, because that's basically all that they have, is trying to impeach Donald Trump as many times as possible. Whatever, they'll try and find something that he did. Scott Wiener said something in the beginning of this video about having a spine of steel and standing up for people. He said, I'm going to stand up for people, and I'm going to be that, I'm going to stand up for the voices, and I'm going to be that tough guy, just like Nancy Pelosi, who had a spine of steel. Well, a video came out recently where Scott Wiener's not necessarily standing up for all the colors of the rainbow flag that he loves to fly. It was pretty interesting. I want to take a watch of this video real quick.
Senator Wiener, as the only black lesbian here, can I please ask you a question, because I flew here to do that? Yeah. Okay. As a lesbian woman who was attacked in the women's locker room at Gold's Gym this week by a self-identifying trans woman with a documented history of domestic violence, I'm deeply concerned about women's safety in female-only spaces. What would you say to women who are seeking assurance that their safety will be protected from men who, by California law, can self-ID as women in women-only spaces, sir? Please tell me.
We have trans people, both men and women, who are men and women, and so if you're trans women are women.
And I'm telling you now, millions of women across America are being harassed and assaulted in locker rooms. I'm a lesbian black woman. I'm not home, but I do see a lot of these bills that you've passed that are dangerous for women and young children. And we need your help, because you're in the office. You're going to go in the Pelosi spot. I want to support you.
I think she meant Pelosi, not Polinsky spot, but
I have millions of people behind me watching this right now, and we want to know, are you going to protect women, not trans women? Trans women are different things. Women. Listen, we need to protect women's safety. I was a he had.
I'm trying to imagine. You don't get to see who says that, but I'm imagining like it's some guy with like long hair who's putting half the effort in and like put a woman's blouse on. It's like, trans women are women, and it's like, whoa, dude, like calm down. Like, no, that's you're missing the point here.
He broke his wife's jaw so bad she needed reconstructive surgery. I'm a lesbian. I'm not trans. I'm black. So if there's another black woman in here who wants to tell me how they feel, please join in. But all of you are not. And I'm telling you right now, men are harassing women in the locker room.
Let's let him answer the question.
Let's
give the senator the opportunity.
I'm done.
I appreciate your point of view.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry that you were harassed,
Multiple times.
and I appreciate you talking about it. I think we need to protect the safety of all women. So women and cisgender women are brutalized in this country, and we have to protect the safety of all women.
And my name is Tish Hyman. You heard me, sister? All right. Don't let them use our blackness and our civil rights as a reason to pass weird laws for children to transform. It's wrong. My sister's in jail. She can't get free tampons or soap, but she can get free transformation medication. Big Pharma at its best. Tired of it.
Well, things were going
All right. In this episode of the Woke Olympics, we had someone who identified as a black lesbian woman challenging Scott Wiener on trans women, saying that trans women are not women. And Scott Wiener is like, yes, trans women are women, which for those of you who are not really familiar, I still question. I don't know what does trans mean, the direction you're going in. So if you are a trans woman, you are a man who is transitioning into a woman. Is that how this is all broken down? I don't know. It's still weird. I can't wrap my head around it. So that's the woke Olympics of Scott Wiener. Is now he's going to have to deal with the fact that there are women like this woman here who was very upset, and she goes, "Look, I'm a black lesbian, and I was harassed because there are trans women who are going into bathrooms like the one at Gold's Gym where she went in and she got harassed, and it's a man, like a man who's going into a women's locker room, and she's going, well, what are you going to do to stop this?" But Scott Wiener, being the uber progressive from San Francisco that he is, who loves to fly all the colors of the rainbow flag, can't say anything bad about it, because if he says anything about trans women, he might lose the 12 votes that he would get in that congressional race. God forbid. We know that like trans are less than 0.001% of the entire population anyway. Not sure why this is something that has to be defended or has to be upheld so much. But this woman was clearly distraught. And Scott Wiener did not have a strong backbone. So contrary to the video prior to that, where he said, I'm going to take it from Nancy Pelosi and have a spine of steel, and I wish I can just stand up for people. Where are you standing up for this poor woman here who was assaulted and went through a traumatic event, and she's standing up for other women who have been assaulted by trans women who are men biologically, going into women's locker rooms and assaulting them and taking advantage of it? Where is the spine of steel then, Scott Wiener? We can't seem to find it then, because he doesn't want to upset anybody. He doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to be viewed as a transphobe or something like that. He doesn't want to be viewed as not woke enough. He doesn't want to be viewed as not progressive enough. Again, you're in a very, very blue district. It doesn't hurt if you lose a couple votes over this, if you stood up for something. And he said, well, we have to protect all women, and I'm sorry that this went through this. And of course he's saying, women includes trans women. So that's Scott Wiener. So those are your options right now. You have Nancy Breed, who is the former disgraced mayor of San Francisco, who is not popular with people in San Francisco, that she got voted out. Scott Wiener, who can't stand up against any wokeness, in the sense of he's being out-woked by his woke supporters, and he can't seem to stand up for women's rights and women's safety. And then you have this other guy who I can never remember his name, Saikat Chakrabarty. I'm probably butchering his name. He's a wealthy tech worker. So those are your options. I'm sorry, San Francisco. Those are your options. And it's not like you're going to get a Republican. I know there's some people who are like, maybe we can flip the seat. No, you're not going to flip the seat. That is a blue district, probably the deepest blue district in most of America. I would probably say it's probably in the top 3 of the bluest districts in all of America. So those are your choices. So good luck, San Francisco. All the best to you. And who you get as your new representative. And maybe you get another Pelosi. Maybe Pelosi is not done with you. The Pelosi reign of terror is not done in San Francisco. You're going to get a state senator with the last name Pelosi. All right. I'm going to take a minute to check in on the chat again, wherever you're hanging out from. Again, Camila's off tonight. If you haven't already checked out our Telegram channel, our members only went live last week. So help support the channel. We're having a good time over there. We're starting to share stories. I think we got the hang of it now. It took a little bit, but we've got the hang of Telegram now. It's a little wonky. Somebody said the Democrats already lost a huge chunk of the black vote, so they're looking for a new demographic to pander to every 4 years. Where's all the whites for BLM in that room? Exactly, a bunch of woke liberals that have selective rage. Yeah, where was all the people who were protesting for BLM? I bet most of those people in that room were out there protesting for BLM. And now when there is a black female who's saying, look, I have been a victim of assault. Well, where are we standing up now? Some dude in the background who probably dresses like a woman is going, trans women are women. It's like, calm down, dude. Like, this woman's trying to say something. She went through a traumatic episode. All right. My home is 2 blocks from the ferry here in Vallejo, and I have never taken the ferry to San Fran since 2018 after it fell to liberal policies that destroyed it. Camille, who was in the chat hanging out, she's literally black and a lesbian. Don't we prioritize her? Well, no, see, there's a woke scale, right? And there's a woke victim scale. And sadly, she doesn't go far enough on the scale to get all of the prioritization in San Francisco with people like Scott Wiener. She's like halfway there. If there's a scale, she's probably a 5, like on that victim woke scale. Is, you know, there's a 10, which is trans women. That is always the, 10, that's the perfect. If you're a trans person, you're 10, you're always a victim. But, in this case, this is how far we've moved, is that someone who was a black lesbian, you're only a 5 now. So sorry to all black lesbians. Let's see what other comments you guys have before we get to our next story. Scott Wiener, who helped push Senate Bill HR 145 that protects child predators that are caught with minors. Yeah, that was the one that was basically, was that the one where you could just sign off on a piece of paper and someone can go and take your kid? He's moderate. That's interesting, probably because he took money from AIPAC. That's interesting. He's also funded by like a lot of big pharmaceutical lobbies and stuff like that. So he takes big money from different places. Healthcare. He's a big healthcare guy, so he takes a lot of money from healthcare and sure pharmaceuticals. He's always pushing. You can connect the dots here. Connect the dots. It's not that, I mean, people wonder like if they're doing this for this altruistic reason, but people who push universal healthcare, go to followthemoney.org. Here's what you do. You go to followthemoney.org, and if someone's pushing universal healthcare, look at who their top donors are, and I guarantee you they're in their top 5 donors is some sort of SEIU, healthcare workers, or something like that. Because what do they get out of this? Well, when there's universal healthcare, there's more money flowing into the healthcare, and there's more people going to hospitals and using pharmaceuticals. Like, this is what's happening. It creates more business for healthcare. So that's always follow the money. It's like, who's supporting him about affordable housing? It's usually construction unions. It's a lot of constructions, pipe fitters, carpenters, stuff like that. Because why? Because they get the contracts that then allow them to make more money. So it's not that hard. It's just how it is. I mean, literally just go to followthemoney.org and you can see like, oh, what are your top priorities, politician? Oh, I want to create affordable housing. I want to create universal health care. I want to do such and such thing. Okay, great. Let's look at who your donors are. They should really do that. Like, that would be great in debates. Imagine if they say, okay, my top priorities are affordable housing, universal health care, and something else. And then you go, okay, great. Let's take a look at your top donors from the past couple of years. Oh, look at that. Okay, so now all the voters can see your top donors are big pharma, big healthcare, and unions and contractors and construction people. So if that gives you any idea of why they're pushing it, you have it right there. All right. I want to get to the next story because we're still reeling from Prop 50. Obviously, we're all upset. Last week, we did the live show watching the results come in. And it was basically at 8 o'clock they called it. But it's not over. The fight's not over. We did talk about last week. The Supreme Court is going to hear, or has heard, they have heard the arguments regarding the Voting Rights Act of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. I think that's part of it. And they're basically deciding whether or not Section 2 is unconstitutional. And basically, Section 2, give you a little recap of what happened last week, what we were talking about, is that there was, under the Voting Rights Act, is that minorities are being left out of districts, and under Jim Crow laws, they were basically being disenfranchised and they didn't have a voice in Congress. So then the Voting Rights Act came in and said, okay, you have to include a certain proportion of minorities so that it makes it fair. Now it's being abused because now people are using that to their advantage, like places here in California or Illinois or Massachusetts or places like that, where they will reach out and grab Democratic minority voters to turn districts more blue or lean blue. And then in Prop 50, we have a very specific case where, yes, they actually stretched out, got more Latino voters or tried to get more minority Democratic voters and made it more blue. So that's what we talked about last week, is that the Supreme Court might overturn this and change Prop 50 anyway. But there's something else that happened literally right after Prop 50 passed, and this was a day after the proposition. This is from ABC 10. A day after Proposition 50 was passed in California, a proposed ballot initiative was introduced to limit the use of the redrawn maps for one congressional term. The proposed initiative, called the Fair, Independent, and Nonpartisan Redistricting Act, was filed with the California Attorney General's office and would appear on the November 2026 ballot. If enough signatures are collected, the measure aims to reinstate the California Redistricting Commission's congressional districts in 2028, according to a news release. Quote, under our constitutional amendment, the gerrymandered districts drawn by the state legislature will be used for one election cycle and then go away, as was promised, James V. Lacey, the measure's lead proponent, said in the release. The districts that were drawn by the California Citizens Redistricting Commission after the last census will be restored for the remainder of the decade. So I don't hate the strategy. The strategy, now imagine if they actually put some effort and like money behind this, contrary to like any of the opposition that did not show up at all for Proposition 50, like where was the California GOP? We're going to get to them in a second. Where was the California GOP? There was no opposition. There was no ads or anything like that. But imagine now, if you have the opportunity and you actually get money behind this, you're kind of switching the argument and saying to people who supported Prop 50, okay, well, put your money where your mouth is. You said it's temporary. Great. It's temporary. It's going to happen for 2026. And then after that, it goes back. Right? This was the one election that, you know, Trump is going to have this one midterm election. 2028 is going to be a presidential election year. So it's going to be a new president regardless. And okay, if your whole thing was you want to level the playing field to get back at Trump, okay, put your money where your mouth is. Great. Make it temporary. And I think if you did it correctly, where you actually educated the voters on what it means and what Prop 50 was, a lot of people didn't understand. There was actually polls showing that people thought they were voting for the Independent Redistricting Commission, that they were in support of it. But in reality, they didn't realize they were giving power to the state legislature. And with that, they kind of got duped because there was no information. Like there was the misinformation coming from the yes side was all about stick it to Trump. We're not going to tell you really what this is about. This is about protecting democracy for everybody. This is, do it for the nation. This is to protect democracy across the nation. I don't know how you're supposed to protect democracy across the nation with just a California measure, but sure, whatever. You got AOC out there, you got Barack Obama out there, you got all these Democrats who showed up, who made their little pitch as to why you should vote for Prop 50. But if done correctly, this is almost like put your money where your mouth is. If you think this is temporary, okay, then make it temporary and it's got to stay temporary. And if they do it correctly, again, they may have not had a lot of time because of the fact that it was such a condensed amount of time. Think about it. They got Prop 50 onto the ballot or set up for a special election end of August, around that time. And then there was an election in November. So it was really a mad dash between August and November. So it really was not that much time between the two of them. But if you have time now, and let's say you have 6 months and you have time to raise money and donors and you have ads and stuff like that, it could be a winning argument. And I would be in favor of it. I'd be in favor of voting for something. Okay, you want to make it temporary? Great. We're going to make it a constitutional amendment. It's temporary. You can't go back. And that's it. That's it. You got this one shot. Yeah, you got through Prop 50. You got your redrawn districts. After that, it goes back to the old way it was. So, I don't hate it. So look out for this proposition. It literally just got announced, so you'll find out more about it. We'll keep an eye on what's happening with it. In other news, the California GOP, right after Prop 50 came out, decided to file a federal lawsuit. And last week, if you tuned in, I did not hold back on the California GOP because they basically did not show up to fight Prop 50. And it's kind of baffling to me that you had a measure on the ballot that literally took away positions from Republicans and you didn't fight like hell to stop it, right? You didn't fight like hell to stop it. You did not try to even put out something. You maybe had an ad here or there, maybe some mailers or something like that. But you just didn't do what you needed to do to push back on this at all. And it was almost like, where are you guys? Where is the California GOP? They were nowhere to be found during this entire campaign. And I'm kind of pissed now that they're doing this now. And Corinne Rankin, who was the California GOP chair, this was like her first, she's a new chair. She was just elected. This was her first big test as the California GOP chair. And I got to say it, she failed miserably. She failed miserably to coalesce, to get what she needed to get done. This was a huge test for her, and she failed monumentally. There was no way to get any Prop 50, no one Prop 50 signs. There was no coordination. There was no ground game. There was nothing. Nothing at all from the California GOP. And now I'm pissed because they show up now to file this federal lawsuit. And does it have legs? Maybe. I haven't read the lawsuit, but this is from the San Francisco Standard. It says the state's Republican Party Assemblyman Dave Tangipa from Fresno and 18 individual GOP voters claim that the redrawn congressional districts are a violation of the U.S. Constitution 14th to 15th Amendments, according to a lawsuit filed Wednesday in federal court in Sacramento. The new districts for House seats were allegedly skewed in favor of Latino voters, the Republican lawsuit claims. The 14th Amendment grants citizenship to everyone born in the United States, and more relevant to this lawsuit, guarantees equal protection of the law. The 15th Amendment says the right to vote cannot be denied because of a person's race. So it goes on to talk about, quote, in one fell swoop, political insiders grabbed the power away from the people. Corinne Rankin said, after the race was called Tuesday, I truly believe that the Republican Party is on the right side of history in this case. You truly believed it so much that you waited until after the election and after it was a landslide election to actually do something about it. Good job, Corinne Rankin. Let's keep going down. Quote, and this is from our old friend Gavin Newsom. We haven't reviewed the lawsuit, but if it's from the California Republican Party and Harmeet Dillon's law firm, it's going to fail. A governor's office spokesperson wrote in an email, good luck, losers. Classy. Classy. I mean, I know Gavin's doing this whole I'm trying to impersonate Trump thing. It just comes off as bad. It just comes off as cringe when Gavin Newsom's trying to do it. Like, again, what happened to the whole when they go low, we go high? I guess that's out the window. Now it's like when they go low, we try to get like, we try to go even lower. So that's what's happening now. Two efforts to try and limit Prop 50. One is the proposition, which I think probably is a better shot of limiting Prop 50. Keep it to just 2026. See what happens. Make it temporary. Put their money where their mouth is. Probably a better option. More likely to pass. I'm not sure about this federal lawsuit. It may go somewhere. The Supreme Court overruling the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, and the entire Voting Rights Act, maybe. That could be a big thing. So you have three things right now that may change Prop 50. So it's not, the fight over Prop 50 is not kind of like, it's not done yet, is what I'm trying to say. Is that keep your eyes tuned to programs like ours, where we keep you informed on this stuff. And we'll see what happens with Prop 50. I don't think the fight's over. They're not going to just kind of roll up and well, California GOP's case with Corinne Rankin at the helm, they're kind of just waited till the last minute. It's kind of like when you didn't get an assignment in on time and then you try and do like something for extra credit after the assignment's due, or maybe you try and argue with the teacher why you should get your credit for your assignment. That's what Corinne Rankin seems like she's trying to do here. So good job on that. All right. Take a moment. I want to check in on the comments. How's everyone doing tonight? We got one more story. Newsom is the perfect example of a weenie gains power and becomes the bully. That's a good way to put it. I mean, that's why we have a shirt. We call him Old Noodles, because there was a picture of him getting the flu vaccine in COVID, and this is the first time I ever seen Gavin Newsom not with a long sleeve shirt on, and he has like a little noodly arms. So I always thought that was kind of funny. Someone said no, 145 is different. Prop 495 is a bill that everyone can put a caregiver. Okay, sorry, 49. It had a 4 in it. It's tough. We follow a lot of California politics, and even I get confused because we get hit with so many bills and stuff every single year. I mean, it's like 2,000 bills get introduced every year. We don't read all of them. We read a ton of them, ones that are going to likely pass, and keep you guys informed. So that was 495. That one did pass, and that was signed into law. Really hope that Army Dillon law firm gets some teeth on their lawsuit against Prop 50. California Patriots need some wins here. All right. Everyone checking in. Good to see everyone tonight. The horrible thing is the precedent sets, and he openly called for other states to follow suit. Yeah, that's a great point by Pauly Shortcuts. Okay, I love that name because it reminds me of The Sopranos, and I'm hoping that is an homage to Pauly Shore, or is it Pauly Shore the actor? I'm thinking it's like Pauly from Sopranos, but either way, yeah. After they won Prop 50. It's almost like his tune changed, and he had this victory speech where he goes, now I want every other blue state to start doing the same thing, and I want you to redistrict, and I want you to redistrict, and Virginia should redistrict, and this state should redistrict, and everybody should redistrict and squeeze more Democrats in. It's like, whoa. I thought what California was doing was just to balance out what Texas was doing, right? Wasn't that the whole argument, is that it was just what Texas was doing? That's all we were doing. We just want to balance the playing field, make it fair. Now it's, let's do it everywhere. Let's start redistricting. It worked here. Let's work there. Okay, now you've completely contradicted everything you said. You said that it was just to cancel out or balance out Texas. And then now you're calling for every blue state to do the same thing to gain and squeeze more votes out. It's almost like now you got a little taste of power. That's why these politicians, they say it's temporary. And they say it's only to balance it out. And that's why you can't believe anything they say. Because the minute they won, they were already grabbing at more power and trying to get more stuff. Somebody said, let's be easy on Newsom. He had to grow up on Wonder Bread and mac and cheese in his $1 billion marine home. Yeah. Poor Gavin Newsom. Poor guy. He had that Wonder Bread, the stacks, he said. Stacks of Wonder Bread and mac and cheese. Always, throwing the ball against the wall. Poor Gavin Newsom with his Burberry scarf. Rough life. Rough life for a kid who grew up basically under the wing and under the care of the Getty family. He was basically the adopted son. Not formally, but he was the adopted son of the Getty family, where he just was always around. He was always around the Getty family. And if you don't know who the Getty family is a huge oil family. Again, ironic that a guy who is obsessed with Green New Deal and green energy basically made his bones and got his leg up in the world because of the oil money, and because people who had oil money gave him his leg up. I mean, his Plump Jack Winery is started because of the Getty family, because they were seed money. And his father was the trustee of the Getty Trust. There was a whole kidnapping story with one of the Getty children, and his father, Gavin Newsom's father, was the one who delivered the ransom money. This is how close the Newsoms are with the Gettys. So this idea of he was eating Wonder Bread and mac and cheese and living a life of poverty, he always makes it sound like, I had a single mother and blah, 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 and I lived up. Question, if it goes to court, won't they divide between people voting for redistricting and then split it to make them redistrict it according to the VRA? Okay. So is the question, if they go to court and then they win in court and then it has to go back to under the VRA? Is that what they're arguing? Is that it violates? This is what makes this so interesting, this lawsuit, because if they're suing based on the Voting Rights Act, which is currently federal law, so maybe they're suing based on the Voting Rights Act, I guess they're one way or another, they're hoping either the Voting Rights Act stays in power and stays into legislation and Supreme Court doesn't do anything about it, or the Supreme Court does do something about VRA and then it gets overturned and then their federal lawsuit is kind of moot anyway. So yeah, it could be either one. Like it could be they have to go back under the Voting Rights Act. So interesting question. I haven't read the lawsuit, so I don't know. If you guys have any more comments or questions, let me know. We have one more story before we end the night. In gubernatorial news, now that we've talked about Congress enough, I feel like that's all this show's been about is Congress. Well, because that's what everyone's talking about now is what's going on with Congress. In more local California news, after outburst Katie Porter's support in California governor's race slips, a new poll shows that former Orange County Representative Katie Porter's support in the 2026 governor's race dropped after she tangled with a television reporter during a heated interview in October, an incident that rival candidates used to question her temperament. So we covered it on the show a couple of weeks ago, and Katie Porter lost her temper. And basically stormed off of an interview. And then all these other videos popped up of her, not the one of her pouring hot mashed potatoes on her husband's head. Look it up. Go put in Katie Porter mashed potatoes. There is a true story out there of like in court documents and public documents that she poured steaming hot mashed potatoes on her husband's head, the one that she's now divorced from. Porter was a clear frontrunner over the summer, but by late October, she dropped behind Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, a Republican, according to a poll released Friday by the UC Berkeley Institute of Governmental Studies and co-sponsored by The Times. So here's the graph. It shows that Chad Bianco picked up more between August and October. He's now 13%. Katie Porter dropped all the way down to 11%. Xavier Becerra also lost ground, which I think is interesting. And Steve Hilton gained 8%. So the two biggest gainers since previously is Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco. Interesting. Antonio Villaraigosa gained 5. Betty Yee, they're way back there. Rick Caruso actually lost. Interesting as well. And then there's these Tony Thurman. Nobody really cares about Tony Thurman. He's running. But if you could guess who Tony Thurman is, Camille, you can't answer because I know you're listening in the chat. Who Tony Thurman is or what his previous job is that makes him qualified. He thinks he's qualified for governor. Say it in the chat. Still, nearly half of the registered voters surveyed remained undecided, evidence that few Californians are paying attention to a race that remains wide open and was eclipsed in recent months by the costly and successful congressional redistricting battle that became a referendum on President Trump. Porter remains the most favored Democrat candidate, which is significant in a state that has not elected a Republican governor since 2006. So, I joke that the actually leading candidate of this gubernatorial race right now is undecided because they have like 43% of the vote. 43% of voters are like, I'm undecided. I don't know who I'm going to vote for. It's a year away, and unless you're political nerds like us talking about it, or we're paying attention to it, it's still like a year away. It's crazy that gubernatorial race is like 11 months away from now. There's a lot of people who aren't really paying attention. Like the general public is not paying attention to the gubernatorial race. So people like us, yeah, we're focused on it. Can you read something out of this? Maybe. Does it show there might be a little change in sentiment? I don't know. Is it indicative of the fact that Chad Bianco is going to lead and run away with this thing? Probably not, because things will change as time goes on, as people kind of peter out. We have until June when they have the primary, and then people go out and they nominate whoever they want, whether it's the Democratic Party, they nominate their person, the Republican nominates their person. It's the jungle primary, it's the top two, so they're probably going to get one Republican in there because they always like to have a Republican versus a Democrat. So Democrat most likely guarantees that they're going to win. Goes on to talk about how everyone was kind of just waiting for Kamala Harris and Alex Padilla to make their decisions. And now that this has happened, now they are more likely to start ramping things up. Rick Caruso, who has not announced yet, still kind of in there. And someone asked, so is Rick Grinnell for sure not running? I don't think Rick Grinnell's running because he was saying he was only going to run if Kamala Harris is running. And since Kamala Harris is not running, Rick Grinnell is most likely not going to run now. So the two top Republicans, if you're looking at Republican, Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco. Katie Porter is still the head Democrat by a pretty big margin, which is terrifying because if you know anything about her temperament, and we did basically a whole show on Katie Porter, and she is a very rotten, mean person. One thing I do like to look at, polls are one thing, but betting markets are usually a little bit more maybe indicative. And I was shocked to see this. I looked at Kalshi, and this is what Kalshi had as of today. Who's going to be the next governor of California? Eric Swalwell. That's right. Eric Swalwell is right now the favorite. Like, he has a 32% chance of being the governor of California. He's not even announced. I haven't even heard a rumbling that Eric Swalwell is going to be, that he's actually running. I haven't heard a whisper of the fact that, like, he's even thinking about it. So the fact that Kalshi has him as the top guy who's going to win, terrifying. He's hanging out with Chinese spies, and what, he was dating a Chinese spy? Yeah, he was dating a Chinese spy. Katie Porter's still there at 23%. Steve Klubeck, who's another Democrat, he's a billionaire at 13%, followed by Rick Caruso at 11%. Xavier Becerra, 6%. Chad Bianco, 6%. Steve Hilton at 6%. So, moral of the story, we got a long way to go. Who knows? A year is like a lifetime in politics. So, is it exciting that a Republican jumped into the lead? Sure. By the fact that Katie Porter fell so hard, awesome. But we got such a long way to go until the gubernatorial race. It is kind of scary. Let's see. Please no Swalwell. No. Isn't Gates in? Yeah, Gates is in San Diego. Gates could technically. Can you run? I don't know. How long do you have to be? I think you can just move to California and run. I don't know what the rules are. I'm pretty sure he's been in San Diego for a year or so now. So, all right. Any other final questions or comments? Thanks everyone for tuning in and hanging out with me tonight. Hanging out with me while I do this solo. We do this every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Things put out a lot more content. We got the Telegram. We got the members only Telegram, where we're putting out daily stories. Camille and I are putting daily stories in. So stuff that we can't get to, stuff that we find interesting, but maybe we don't get to on the show. Maybe we don't get to on a news hit, but you're interested in our take on California politics. Go check it out. We're doing also conversations. Like, we discussed like this 50-year mortgage thing, which to me is a bonkers idea of a 50-year mortgage, because at that point, why not just rent for the rest of your life? You're never going to own the house, so just rent it anyway. And then you don't have to pay for property tax. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. You don't have to worry about fixing it. I mean, to me, if you were to tell me, oh, you can rent right now, or you can buy and own your house outright in 50 years, to me, it makes sense. I'm going to rent, because otherwise the only people who are making the money off of me is property taxes go to the state government, and the big banks make all the interest. So it's another way for banks, I guess, to make more money. I don't know. I think it's insane, the idea of a 50-year mortgage. But that's stuff that we've been talking about. So if you want to join that Telegram channel, there is the link pinned in this chat. Also, if you're watching, I did this fancy thing right here. Whoop, right here you can see. This QR code, if you scan it with your phone, scan it with your camera, it'll bring you right to the link, so you can go start subscribing and join. It'll take you through the whole thing. You can sign up. It's $1.99 a month. We made it as kind of affordable as possible. Helps support the show, helps us keep going, and it's a fun little members-only thing. We're going to be doing other members-only things, like members-only exclusive first access to new merchandise. We're going to be rolling out we're always trying to roll out merchandise that helps support the show. 15% discount for those who are in the members channel for anything on our merchandise site, exclusive live content. We want to do more like casual hangouts with people, stuff like that. So there's going to be a ton of members only benefits. So if you want to join, and it's also a good community, join the members only Telegram. So with that said, the voter ID bill. Yep, the people keep your eye out for the voter ID bill. It is put out by Carl DeMaio, who, if you know, we're not fans of Carl DeMaio here. He's not a fan of us. But if this voter ID thing works, that should be on the ballot next year. That would be interesting to see. Interestingly enough, there was the Public Policy Institute or some institute did a study or a poll and found that overwhelmingly like 70% of Californians are in favor of voter ID. So it's interesting. It's interesting if we get voter ID here in California, what's going to happen after that. So somebody says, I heard that if you do 50 minutes, get in the office, and they socialize things, it would be worth it. I don't know anything about owning a home, though, or financing. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, because you're not paying down the principal for the first how many years. And people are like, oh, well, you get in. It gives you the opportunity to own a house, and you can use it and refinance. Maybe you can refinance in like 20 years when you finally built up some equity, whatever little equity you have in that house. But for 50 years, that's a damn long time. It's a damn long time to try and pay off a house. They don't even let you pay off student loans for 50 years. So crazy. Anyway, thank you everyone for hanging out. Outside of the Telegram channel or anything else, the best way you can support the show that is 100% free is share this with a friend who you think will find this interesting, who is interested in California politics. We will be back next Tuesday live at 8 p.m. We'll see you on the next one. Later.